You're doing the best you can.
When they go low, we go high.
There is hope even when your brain tells you there isn't.
You matter. You are loved. You are worthy. If any of these stigmas resonate with you, tune in to the S.I.P show today at noon.
Hello, and welcome to the show, the S.I.P show. I'm Dr. Jeremy Blunt, also known as the Stitch Doc. We really have a great show for everyone today. May, as many of you know, is Mental Health Awareness Month. Today's show is dedicated to empowering women and the significance of mental health. Our guest today has an inspirational story with a transformational message known as the journey from success to significance. She is a former lawyer and senior executive turned entrepreneur, a mentor for women and female entrepreneurs, an author and motivational speaker. She is joining us live from Indonesia. It is an honor for me to welcome my friend to the conversation, Ms. Meena Adnani. Welcome to the show. This is such an awesome thing for you to be here. We are welcoming you in. Welcome to the show. Please say hello to the tuned in audience.
Hi, everyone. It is such an honor for me to be here. Thank you, Jeremy, for getting me on this show.
I'm so happy to have you. I'm excited that you took time out of your schedule to join the conversation. I believe there's about a 12-hour difference between us.
Yes,
So it's midnight there, right?
it is. But it's okay. I'm used to working at nights as well, so it's all good.
Okay. So look, we're going to jump right in uh, to this story. So let's get started. To the world who do not know who Meena Ainani is, please tell us who you are.
Well, I wish there was a easy way to answer that, but my story is slightly long. I am Indian of Indian origin, but born and raised in Indonesia. I come from a family of 8 siblings. We are 7 girls, 1 boy, so I have 7 other siblings. I am a lawyer, and also I was working as a senior executive for over 20 years. And recently, well, not recently, about 4 years ago, I transitioned and started mentoring women and women led businesses. And so, yeah, as you can tell from my introduction, I have a diverse background. I was born in an Indian family, but born and raised in Indonesia. And I don't know how many people know a lot about being brought up in an Indian family is like, but basically, I was not encouraged at all to get an education. In fact, if anything, I was told I should not get educated because girls should just get married at the age of 17 or 20. But definitely, education was not on my cards, but I didn't want to settle for that life.
Okay. So now I got to point this out because a couple years ago we met at Mind Valley, and
Right.
we had the travel from the United States, from where I live to Bali, which is in Indonesia, was a 37-hour flight. I just got to make sure I mentioned that so that people understand. Like you're on the other side of the world. So it is
Exactly.
awesome to have you with us today. Look, when you
It's a
speak
pleasure.
about transition from being an executive at the peak of success to now being on the front line of women empowerment, how did you get to that point?
Well, I think what's really interesting about life is that, there are things that happen to you, but how you allow it to affect you is really up to you. So in my case, and I'm sure many people have stories about what they have been through, and there is so much power when you actually own your story. So for me, what happened was in 2016, when I was at the peak of my success, I actually went through a lot of different problems, you could say. One of the things that I really one of the things that I had to be able to accept and overcome was that I lost 100% of my finances. And that too, because I had entrusted a family member to invest that money. So as a result of that, I lost all that money. And so it was a very long journey for me to have to deal with that, because there were a lot of things that I had to deal with at an emotional level. Wasn't just the fact that I was financially, betrayed, you could say. I was also at a place where I had defied social norms. I had done everything within my power not to live the life that was paved out for an Indian girl. And so when I had already been able to achieve everything that I set out to achieve, only to find myself at a place where I had lost everything, that was the moment for me where I had to ask myself, what is this all about? And usually when people go through hardships, the first question people ask themselves is, why did this happen to me? And I am so glad that I've been very aware of the fact that I do not want to live in a victim mindset. So instead of asking, why did this happen to me? I asked, what am I to learn from this? So there were a lot of lessons for me to learn. And one of the lessons for me to learn was that I had not trusted in my own power. I had not trusted in my own intuition and in my own ability to be able to invest that money myself. And I had entrusted someone else to do it. Second, I also had to be able to deal with forgiveness. And a lot of times when people have been betrayed or have gone through that difficulty, the thing that I think a lot of people have not been able to deal with is, why should I forgive if someone has wronged me? And so one of my favorite quotes is, when you hold on to resentment, it is as if you are taking poison and expecting someone else to die. So when I decided that I wanted to forgive, it was not because anyone deserved to be forgiven, but because I deserved peace. And when I decide to cut the cord of resentment and hatred, that is when I set myself free from being able to that is when I set myself free so that I can live the life that I truly, truly desire. So how did I get from going from success to significance? After I lost all that money, I decided to embrace my own power. And within 2 years, I made that money back. My dream was to own a villa in Bali. And I created that dream even when I didn't have that money. And so within a year of creating that dream, I was able to invest that money and buy a villa in Bali. And it was that period where I had to go through so much in terms of trauma, and I had to overcome the trauma, that I became much more spiritually aligned with who I was as a person. And once I became more aligned with who I was as a person, I think that is when you really start understanding what you were created for. Then there was this little voice in my head that said, you are created for a purpose greater than yourself. And I was actually a little scared about that, because I worked so hard to get to the epitome of success. And so for me, getting to that level as an Asian, as a woman, and as someone who does not, as someone who comes from a background where nobody had been a professional in my family before. And in fact, I was the first person who was educated. It was not easy for me to give up all of that. But because at that point, I just had this intuition that there was a whole world waiting. And I shouldn't say whole world, 50% of the world are women. And so I need to actually do my part. I've done everything that I needed to for myself. Now this is the time when I need to go out there and really not just teach, but empower and change the mindset of women about how much power we all have individually to be able to create the life that we want. So that's when I decided to let go of success and move on to significance.
Wow, that is truly an inspiring story. Look,
Thank
as
you.
I'm reading through your bio and information about you, I heard the phrase "playing small." What does that mean to you?
Wow, I love that question. Thank you for asking me that. So in on my website, I put that quote, that I will not let you play small. And I really love Mariana Williamson's quote as well, where she says, "Your playing small doesn't serve the world. And as you let your light shine, you give other people permission to shine." And so for me, what is really something that bothers me a lot is when I see women not trusting themselves. And I know there is the rationale to this, and there's a reason behind this. It's because of the belief system that we grew up in and what we have been conditioned to think. I get that. But nothing breaks my heart more than seeing women playing small. And by playing small, I mean not able to see how powerful we are as a human being. And it is only when we understand how powerful we are that we can use that power not just for ourselves but for the greater good. And so for me, understanding that I was powerful enough, and that understanding came only when I lost my money, interestingly enough, because up until that point, as much as it's really interesting because again, I was socially conditioned to think that as a girl I wasn't really as superior as the men. So even though I was successful in a corporate setting, but when it came to culture and when it came to conditioning and family, I always dumbed down because I felt like I needed to fit in. And this was more psychological than anything else. No one asked me to, but I just felt like I needed to. And it was only when I lost that money that I started taking stock of who I was as a person. And when I started understanding who I was, I became aware that I was actually playing two roles. I was a different person when I was in a corporate setting, and I was a different person when I was in a family setting. And that's when I decided that my playing dumb has actually worked against me. And this is when I need to start understanding that I am more than capable of doing all the things I want to do. So this is what I teach women, to be able to understand how we have been conditioned to think that we are not smart enough, we are not beautiful enough, we are not experienced enough. And none of this is actually true. It's only when we understand how powerful we are that we can actually start doing what we want to do.
Okay. That is awesome. In your experience in dealing with women, what do you feel is the greatest challenge that they face today?
I think there are two types of challenges. One is internal and one is external. And unfortunately, I find that nowadays people really focus too much on the external challenges. So when I say external, the challenges that people talk about generally is women are not being given the same opportunity. Women are not being given the responsibility, and that that there's a lot of prejudice against women and that there is equal pay. And I'm not saying that these are the wrong battles to fight. I think women deserve to be paid the same. But I think the biggest problem, and that's the problem I address, and I want to continue working on that, is that first and foremost, I need to get women to be confident. So, a lot of times, when, for example, hypothetically speaking, if you just heard that a guy applied for a job and a girl applied for a job and the guy got the job, it's just an assumption people make that, oh, it's because he's a guy. But no one looks into why is it that the guy gets the job. On average, and I'm not saying this is always the case, but usually if you compare how a guy shows up at a job interview and how a girl shows up in a job interview, it's so different. I notice that when women go for job interviews, and I have interviewed so many people before, when I interview people, I see that there are a lot of women who lack self confidence. And so, if you show up as if you are not good enough for the job, it is no wonder that you don't get the job. So instead of focusing on why is it that the guy got the opportunity and not the girl, I want girls to understand that you need to first show up confident. And how do you show up confident? This is, again, you having to work with your belief system and understanding who you are as a person. Because if you don't understand who you are, then you will keep underestimating yourself. And when you underestimate yourself, obviously other people will underestimate you.
Wow, that that is very true. It starts with confidence. Look, I realize the more that um, I deal with people and I study people, women, y'all take on a lot. And being a father of two girls, I've come to the reality that everyone is not designed to be a woman. To be honest, I'm glad I'm not one. Because y'all take on a lot, from relationships to
Yeah,
motherhood, to often, you know, um, they shift their dreams and their career as a result of
absolutely.
other things that they deal with. So, do you feel like women get often overlooked for the things they do as quote unquote normal because someone else wasn't there to do it, or and it just needed to get done?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot that happens when it comes to women being overlooked, and the different cultures, different women in different from different backgrounds also have different experiences. So I can only speak from the experiences that I myself have, and also some of the experiences that my clients go through. I want to tell you an interesting story. So, I last year went and spoke at a film festival at the Italian Film Festival in Rome. And when I spoke in that festival, it was during a festival where the movies that were showcased were movies of female directors. And so, when I gave a talk, a lot of times I kept referring to women, people who come from Asian background. I kept saying, I kept talking about coming from an Asian background. And so, interestingly, after that, I got approached by women from the UK, from the US, and from Australia who came up to me and said to me that they could relate to my story because even though my circumstances were different, they too went through that same thing, but in a different manner. So I just thought that was really interesting. And that's when I started realizing that, you know what, this is not just a cultural thing. Generally, women all over the world, obviously, I have to say we have made a lot of progress. There is still a lot of progress to be made. Having said that, what I want to go back to again and again is sometimes we need to take the responsibility as to how we get treated. Yes, beyond a certain point, the culture is responsible for that. Many times women get overlooked. But at the same time, I do not want us to be living with a victim mentality where we keep saying that it's the fault of
Yes.
that person, that fault of that culture. I think it's really important for us as women to also realize that we are the ones who set the tone as to how we get treated. And once we understand that, we need to learn how to push back and create boundaries.
Listening to you, I'm reminded this is why we're friends and we continue to be friends because a lot of the things that you're saying are things that I preach all the time about forgiveness and not having a victim mindset. And yes, there are things that are out there, but you have to realize who you are and have the
Yeah,
confidence in who you are. So I'm gonna kind of shift gears just a little bit. Do
sure.
you feel that refueling is important, and how do you refuel for upcoming challenges?
Wow. Very interesting. So, first and foremost, I think we have to be very clear why we came into this world. And for me, I'm very clear about one thing. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. It's not the other way around. We are not physical
Yes.
beings and having spiritual experiences. We are spiritual beings having physical experience. So, what is the most important thing in the world? If you ask different people, everyone will tell you different things. And it's really interesting that you asked me this question because 10 minutes ago, I was just having a conversation with my mom and telling her the same thing. And she obviously, sometimes worries about things. And I reminded her that we are only created for one reason and one reason alone: happiness. That's all we are created for. And when I say happiness, I mean being happy and also being a blessing to other people, making other people happy. So, a lot of times we make our happiness the responsibility of other people. So I have a YouTube channel and I created a video called My 5 Happiness Hacks. And I talk about the 5 things I do to create happiness. And so if we remember that we ourselves are responsible for our happiness, and this is the example I use. Just imagine you have the state of the art kitchen, and that kitchen resides within you, right? You have the state of the art kitchen. You can cook like amazing cordon bleu kind of meals. But what do we do? What most people do is, instead of actually using the state of the art kitchen to create fantastic meals, we go and get takeout and buy McDonald's. So is it a wonder that most of the time we are unhappy? The reason we're unhappy most of the time is, one, we make our happiness the responsibility of someone else, and second, we don't use what we already have on the inside. So going back to your question, what do I do to refuel? There is a lot of things I do to refuel. The first thing I do is to make sure that when I wake up in the morning, my mind is already aligned with my body. And if I'm not aligned, I will not put my feet on the ground, because I think once I put my feet on the ground, I become responsible for everyone that I interact with. So I don't want to be someone who snaps at other people, someone who's upset, because I don't want other people to be collateral damage. So unless I work on myself, I'm not going to put my feet on the ground. The second thing I do is I make sure I work out. And people think that working out is more for physical fitness, but it is so important for mental fitness. And then I also do affirmations, I do prayers. There are many things I do to make sure that I actually refuel myself. So if people are interested, please make sure you check out my video. I have a video on the 5 happiness hacks.
Okay, and I will make sure I put that link in our comments for anybody that would
Sure.
like to see that. What would you tell women listening to the show today who have what I would say settled in life, uh, and they're not following their dreams? What would you tell them today?
Mm. Oh, so many things, so many things. I mean, just you asking me that makes me feel like, honestly, it gives me goosebumps, because there are way, way too many women settling for the life that they do not deserve, settling for the life that they do not want, only because they think that they don't have a choice, only because they think that they are too old, only because they think that this is what they are meant to be doing. And so there, I don't even know where to start. And this conversation is not even going to be, enough to have that conversation, because first and foremost, I usually what I ask them is this. Let's say you are in your 40s, right? And how long do you think you're going to live? Whether people say it's 60, 70, or 80. Let's say 60. Even if you think you're going to die early, that's 20 years. 20 years. Is your life worth you being miserable for 20 years? And then a lot of people are scared to be taking a step in a different direction, and they don't want to challenge the status quo. So my question usually is during that time is it worth you actually being unhappy even for one day after this? And if you are scared to challenge the status quo, then I can guarantee you there is one way for you to fail. One way, not taking a risk on yourself. You will definitely fail.
That's
You
right.
will not be able to fulfill your dreams. You will not be able to achieve the goals you have. That is a one sure shot way of failing. Many times people do not want to challenge the status quo because they don't want to disrupt anything. But unless you disrupt your current status, you're not going to be able to get to a different place. So nothing changes is if nothing changes. I mean, I will leave you with those two thoughts. But to be honest, there's like a whole array of things to be talked about, because a lot of it has to do also with what we tell ourselves.
Okay, thank you so much. Look, I want to real quickly, I want to show a comment that someone made to the show. Mimi is tuned in. She said, I thoroughly agree that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We were born into this world. Our soul has an assignment, but
Amazing.
most people are being forget what they're supposed to be doing during their present life. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for your feedback and your comment. And for those that are tuned into the show, I just want to make sure I put www.strongandshine.com if you want to find out more information about our Meena, our guest today. Look, Meena, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any final comments that you would like to share with our audience?
My pleasure. Again, the final comment I want to make is stop making excuses. You are created for a purpose bigger than yourself. And if you get too nervous about taking that action, it's because you're making it about you. It is not about you. It is about your purpose. It's about you having to create that impact. So if you want to make that impact, you need to be able to get out of your own way. I want to also share, I am 50. So I made this transition when I was 47. And I proudly share this because I do not want women to continue making excuses about their age. Because if I can make that transition at the age of 47, having given up such a successful career, tell me the one thing that will prevent anyone from doing what I'm doing.
Wow. Can I tell you, you do not look 50, by the way.
Thank you.
Just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us on the show today. We'll definitely be in touch. For those that tuned in late, definitely want to go back on and catch the replay of this because she had some very good points. And unfortunately, we've ran out of time. We haven't been able to unpack everything that we talked
No
about.
problem.
But we're going to look forward to possibly having you back on the show again. Thank you so much for
My
joining us
pleasure.
today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jeremy. And I'm sure we'll speak soon. Bye,
Oh,
everyone.
all right, folks. So this gives us a chance to kind of just want to recap today, but I want to also issue a challenge that if you are facing, what do you feel is the greatest challenge that as a female, this is for the female audience that's out there, what's your greatest challenge that you feel that you face today, or the greatest hurdle that you know that you need to overcome, but you may be struggling with it, or it has posed, or if it's a testimonial, a struggle or a challenge that you've overcome. And I want you to make sure you hashtag the SIP show after it when you post it. So, because we always like to go back and look to make sure we're making an impact in people's lives. So, today's show was dedicated to women, both to empower and to bring light to the importance of mental health. And if you are facing a mental health challenge, I encourage you to seek out professional help. Be willing and ready to share your story. I know that there's a stigma in a lot of communities about therapists and mental health, but as a mental health provider, I cannot employ you enough to seek out those answers. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength and it's a sign of maturity. So that brings us to our t shirt challenge of the day. And my t-shirt that I have on today, lead it back so everybody can see it, says Vision 2020. And this was the shirt that we came up with at the beginning of the year as we plotted out and planned, me and quite a few other people, we planned our 2020 year. And although COVID-19, snuck up on everybody, we haven't been able to do all of the stuff that we or haven't been able to get to all of the things that we planned to at first. But guess what? We still got the latter part of the year. And this show is actually one of the things that was on our list. I saw my co-host who was unable to be with us today. I got to give a shout out to D Lodge in the building. This is a manifestation of the things that we talked about at the beginning of the year. Being able to host a show and come on to give insightful tips and information. And what you are watching right now is the manifestation of that vision coming to fruition. So this has been a great conversation today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As we continue to celebrate May as Mental Health Awareness Month, I just want to let you know I am super, super excited that you are here today, and that next week we have a very special guest that will be in the building. He is a friend, what I consider a mentor and a colleague, Dr. Dana Andrews. They're also known as Dr. True. He will speak about men empowerment and being mentally healthy. You don't want to miss this show next week. It is going to truly be awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Guess what, folks? I can't say it enough. This is the place where conversations matter. Until we come again, till we meet again, I'll see y'all next time. Peace. Thanks for joining us today. This was another awesome conversation. But more importantly, we were excited about the fact that you were a part of it. So even if you're catching the replay, we always go back and check out our comments and information from before. So make sure you leave your comments in the comment section. Follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and of course, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to know where we'll be at next, when we'll be in a city near you, and also when we'll have another episode that you can be part of the conversation. Remember, this is the place where conversations matter.